Guess what? What? Not you, the viewers. You're just me from the other side of the frame. Oh, right, my bad. Anyway, guess what? You remember last year when I wrote this song called 1,667 Words about the NaNoWriMo experience? Well, that song has once again been linked on the NaNoWriMo site, right alongside I Talk to Snake's NaNoWriMo song, which is kinda cool. If you found your way to my channel because of that song, welcome. I sing songs about once a month. This is the sort of thing I normally do. Actually, while I'm on the subject of NaNoWriMo, there's something I keep forgetting to mention. First of all, yes, I am doing NaNoWriMo again this year. It will be my third time. Last year for NaNoWriMo, I finished a novel called Last Places, and I went and did the whole proof copy thing. And my friend Alicia, book 5204, read it and reviewed it on her channel. So if you're curious as to what my NaNoWriMo novel was about last year, you can go check out her video here. At this point, Alicia is the only other person besides me to have read the novel, at least as far as I know. And while you're at it, subscribe to Alicia, because she's pretty awesome. But now, on to today's favorite books review, 24 Girls in 7 Days by Alex Bradley. In my humble and entirely speculation-based opinion, this is one of the most underrated pieces of young adult literature in the world. I found this book completely by chance about 2 years ago. I was browsing my local library back in Ashland, I was browsing the young adult section, and I happened to come across this book. It looked like it had a relatively creative premise and was going to be a fun read, so on a whim, I checked it out. The premise is this: Jack Grammer is your typical awkward, nerdy high school senior with no social life and no love life. He wants a date to his senior prom, and so his friends, Percy and Natalie, decide to help him out. How do they help him out? Well, like any good best friends would, they put a personal ad in the school newspaper. This starts out as a lighthearted joke, but eventually they actually start getting responses to the ad. And they decide, well, let's go with this. And so pretty soon Jack Grammer has a list of 24 girls that he has to date in 7 days and eventually pick one to be his prom date. And if this is all sounding like your typical quirky young adult romance, then well, that's exactly what it sounded like to me, too. However, this book seems to be all about taking expectations and beating them down with a sledgehammer until they are in completely indistinguishable pieces. Or something. I thought this was just going to be a typical lighthearted teen romance, which would end like any typical lighthearted teen romance ends, with a prom date and an answer to all the questions and a happily ever after, blah blah blah. There are 3 main questions that are being asked during the course of this story. Who is Jack going to take with him to prom? Who is Jack going to end up with? And who's Fancy Pants? Wait, who? Fancy Pants? Who is Fancy Pants? Well, that's one of the questions, me from now the other side of the frame. No, but I mean, who is Fancy Pants? You haven't explained that yet. Oh, right, Fancy Pants. Fancy Pants is a mysterious email writer that Jack encounters during the course of this week and kind of develops a crush for, even though he has no idea who she is. Now, in a typical lighthearted teen romance, all 3 of these questions would have the same answer. But as I've already implied, this is not a typical lighthearted teen romance. About halfway through the novel, it looks like it's going to head in a certain direction. The protagonist tries to search for true love and realizes that his true love has been in front of him the whole time. Yeah, well, that doesn't work. And then about 3/4 of the way through the novel, we think, okay, this is how it's going to end up. This is who he's going to end up with. Yes, it all fits, it all comes together. This is how the novel's going to end. Yeah, it doesn't work out that way either. And in fact, Jack himself points out that this just works out perfectly. All the puzzle pieces fit together. And if you know anything about my taste in story, you know I love puzzle pieces. And in the end, the answers to those 3 questions, who he's going to take to prom, who Fancy Pants is, and who he's going to end up with, they all have a different answer. And none of them are what we expect the answer to be. Although I did actually guess who Fancy Pants was the first time I read the book. But I'm just awesome. Now, most young adult romances have our protagonist making some kind of great character change or growth, usually involving him becoming less awkward and more confident in himself. And because of this character change, he gets the girl in the end. That's not what happens to Jack. I mean, he goes through the character growth and he becomes less awkward and more confident in himself, but he doesn't get a girl at the end. Jack goes on all of these different dates, and what's wonderful about this is we have many, many different varieties of girl. There are a few girls who are, absolutely horrible and crazy like you would expect from a lighthearted teen romance, but there are also quite a few girls who have many good qualities, who are very likable, and who Jack could easily see himself dating. The point is not that Jack ends up with somebody, because who actually ends up with the person they're going to spend the rest of their life with in high school? I mean, a few people do, but not that many. You find the person that fits you after high school, after you have lived a little bit longer and know a little bit more about yourself. All Jack ends up with at the end of the story is a date. That's all, just one date. No promise, no happily ever after. He just is on a date. We don't know how the date's gonna work out. We don't know if he's gonna end up with this girl. We don't know if he's gonna end up with somebody completely different that we haven't even met in this book. But the point is, he ends up with a date and he has the power to make those decisions on his own. Jack goes into this experience with a very idealized vision of prom, and in the end, he still enjoys his prom experience even though he recognizes that it's not the ideal experience. It tells us that the high school experience is not ideal and it's not perfect, but if we can acknowledge that it's not ideal and not perfect, then we can find something very memorable about the high school experience. Memorable in a good way, you understand. And that, my friends, is a message that I think more high school students should have access to, which is why I think that 24 Girls in 7 Days is one of the most underrated pieces of young adult literature in the world. And so I encourage you to go and seek out this book by Alex Bradley. I had to order it off of Amazon. You might have to order it off of Amazon. But do seek out this book and read it. It really is a very fine novel, in addition to having all the fluffy humor that you would expect from a typical young adult romance. And it is quite obviously still on the favorites list, and the next book on the favorites list is going to be Zell by Donna Jo Napoli. And that, my friends, is all that I have for you today. I will see you on Monday, if not before. And what perfect timing, my neighbors are taking their showers now. Bye.